Casual Magic has been sponsored by Quiver, maker of the Quiver and Bolt deck cases and other fine deck holding accessories. Use the code CASUAL on their website for 10% off your order. We're also sponsored by Architect, the premier site for hosting your decks on the internet. I love them and they love me, and it seems like a good reason for you to use them. You can also support Casual Magic directly by going to our Patreon at patreon.com/ShivamB. And now, on with the show. Hello and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam, Bhatt, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Architect and Quiver, and also by my patrons at patreon.com/ShivamB. Thank you all for your support. It allows me to do this. Content is hard. so everybody who helps me continue to do this is great. Today, I am very excited to have maybe the best cEDH player on the planet, certainly one of the number one competitors out there right now, probably the owner of the largest amount of time twisters by volume, comedian, aka Ian, who is just like a genius master of playing Kinnan, and I don't know, every deck that I enjoy in cEDH seems to end up being a winning deck in your hand. So I'm here for all of that. Thank you so much for joining me, buddy.
Thank you for the glowing intro, and thanks for having me on.
Well, I mean, I've been trying to branch out a bit, because like Casual Magic, I've talked to many Casual Magic people.
Right.
But now there's like, I want to know this other world that I don't have any kind of real visibility into.
Yeah.
Because I don't play tournaments. Though, watching you win all these time twisters with like Kinnan makes me really want to go and win a time twister with Kinnan, because I'm like, I want a time twister. I don't have that. Yeah, so this is sweet. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah.
I think what I want to talk to you today is what it's like to actually go through, like, what tournament like commander is compared to like normal commander, right? Like,
Sure.
Like, not even cEDH or EDH, but like, there's a vibe when four of us are sitting in our room playing, doesn't matter what's on the table, versus we have to pass priority. We have to take turns. We have to, focus on that. Like, it's very, very different. Like, in the past year, I have learned that there's a large difference between cEDH at home as played by, I don't know, spike feeders or whatever, and then going to like a tournament where you got Matt Sperling sitting on the other side and you're like, oh, what the hell is going on? Yeah, so I guess let's start early. When did you find Magic?
Yeah, so I think I was a summer camp counselor in 2014, so about exactly a decade ago. And I was just jamming then, and I was I think M15 had maybe like just come out, but I was picked
one
up
of my
on the
favorite core
M14.
sets.
Yeah, I picked up the M14 starter set, and I was like, yo, this Rabble Master guy is pretty cool. Goblins are sick. But I started in one of the weirdest way possible. My fellow camp counselor had like a legacy cube. So it was like a crazy high power level to like start playing the format with, which is so funny given where I am now. But like, I went from like crazy high power level to start to like trash Magic for so long. And now I'm kind of back.
Yeah, I mean, it's always wild to me to listen to where people start, because like I started when it was like, here's 40 cards, all the cards you own in a pile dot deck, right? Like random starter deck, revised or Ice Age or whatever. And then kids are like kids. And then people younger than me I'm talking to are like, yeah, man, I started playing by watching like vintage tournaments. I'm like, what the hell are you? It's like, I learned to play using Chinese like monolith dredge, or in the case of even like Olivia Gobert Hicks, I learned to play Commander. I learned to play Magic by playing two-headed giant free-for-all commander. And I'm like, what the hell even is that? What are you doing?
That's the most chaotic way to possibly even start.
I 8 people at the table playing two-headed giant, which is already wild.
Yeah.
Plus commander. What?
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, cEDH has a lot of variants, and I hear that, and I'm like, no, we're fine.
No, you're really not. Yeah, but I mean, Legacy Cube though is like super fun. So mind you, I would not give somebody like, hey, draft the Dredge deck, right? Or like not the Dredge, the Storm deck, because what the hell is that? The biggest lie that was ever told to me in Magic, I watched LSV draft a million storm decks,
Yeah.
and then I saw Vintage Cube pop up on MidGo, and I was like, I can draft a storm deck, and I fired up Vintage Cube, and I got my ass kicked up and down the universe, and I was like, oh, it turns out if you don't know how to play Storm, it is a bunch of meaningless garbage in your hand.
Yeah, the cards look like a whole lot of nothing until they mean something.
Yeah, until you win, right?
You're right.
So, when did you find Commander? Or how?
Almost immediately. So I was playing, cards you own .magic, right? And standard was obviously much more the thing back in 2014, right? So I was playing, and my best friend from growing up was like, hey dude, you keep putting together these piles of cards, and like you feature a legendary creature in these piles of cards. It seems like you literally naturally are made to be a commander player. And I was like, all right, man, whatever. Like
that's so awesome. It's like, well, I mean, it makes sense, right? Because around that time, all the legends had really cool abilities, and they were starting to be vaguely defined for Commander. They were not committing yet, but they were still like thematic. Like you could look at Yisan or something and be like, oh, I want to build a Yisan deck, and even in 60 card, it'd ramp up. So naturally, of course, you're gonna be like, oh, you mean I could just have a deck that's literally built to do this thing?
Yeah, I was like, I think one of my first decks was like because I got like a bunch of random like Ravnica and stuff like that, and there was a Phenax that like it stole my heart. I was like, it tapped this guy and it mills, and you could do that every turn. This is great. And they were like, yeah, dude, just literally play that in the command zone. You have access to it all the time. And I was like, oh yeah, like let's go.
So then, how did you find? I guess like. Moving up from there, were you a naturally competitive person? Like, did you want to try to find like harder tables, or is it just how did you get to cEDH?
So I think I'm one of the very few people who like started cEDH half a decade ago, but like I don't fit a cEDH player profile at all. And I think it's very funny because like a lot of people look up to me as that example, right? But like, I was playing like the Johnniest of nonsense Magic, right? Like one of my my infamous famous decks back at the local game store was a Golos deck that was called my 2-color, 3-color, 5-color deck, which I splashed blue just for Baleful Strix. It was all Death Touch creatures, and I would use Golos to tutor up a land called Arena, which I don't know if you remember that land. Yes, it literally you pay 3, does not tap for mana, and you and a person both go. We both pick a creature, they fight. Yes. So I would be in the game store, and I go, nominate your champion at the top of my lungs.
I love every part of this. This is exactly the deck. This is the world I want to live in, is what I'm talking about. Like that sounds like a Ben Wheeler deck right there. Is what that's amazing. I remember when Arena the novel came out, and I mailed out and I got a copy of Arena the card, and I was like, this is it. It felt like a thematic Arena. Yeah, it's like put these two creatures together, they fight. Yeah, and it's like it's cool. It's such a cool card, such a flavorful card.
The funny part was it was like it literally was the farthest from winning, and I couldn't have been happier. You know what I mean? Like I've always been really good at searching for the objective when it comes to Magic, but when I play casual, I just have a different objective. I've had a lot of cEDH players really struggle with that when they build casual decks, but for me, I'm just like I just change where the focus is, right? Like for me, it's like I want to, if I'm gonna make a card draw deck, I'm more likely to want to draw my entire deck, accidentally deck myself, and laugh about it at the table than I am to actually want to be like, and then I combo and killed everybody,
In my Kadira deck, I was playing at Manfest San Francisco, and I was playing in a game, and I had to like leave or I was running out of time or whatever for the game, and I had a card which said like, when you attack or something like that, draw a card. And I had like 250 tokens in play. I drew 250 cards. I milled myself and died, but I had like 500 rabbits in play at the end of it. And I was like, you know what? That is my win condition. I am good. So like, and people are like, you just threw the game away. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I won. I'm pretty sure I just made a bagillion rabbits, which is what the deck wants to do. It's like, I think that people sometimes mistake the idea of, or like are misunderstanding what the aim of relaxed Magic is, right? Like, and it's not a judgment call on cEDH or EDH. That's just the speed of your deck and the power of your deck. It's more like, are you trying to win a prize, or are you trying to just hang out with your buddies and beat them and show off? Right. Or did you like just miss the boat entirely and make the most killer deck you can. Right?
Yeah, like I mean, I can't even like even within the lens of cEDH, I definitely have my like decks that I play because I'm aware that I'm like using them for a competitive angle, and then I have my like post tournament 4 a.m. alcohol has been consumed playing with some of the best players in the world with some of the sloppiest games in the world.
Exactly.
That magic. And there's a whole different reality, even within, once again, that realm of like still confining that to just cEDH, right? And like that's just within the realm of that small margin. Now imagine like adding casual to it as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because like I think people are just like, there's this misconception that casual and cEDH are so vastly different in their aims and goals. And part of that's my fault because I didn't understand for the longest time. And I definitely have changed since I've actually started playing cEDH and I started really understanding what the motivations here are. And it's like, look, the end goal is the same. I want to play another game with my friends. The difference is the speed and the power of the deck we're playing. As long as we're all on the same page, who cares? Exactly. Whatever, man, just nail it. And like, because I had such a blast going to Winnipeg and playing with the spikes, and like they let me your Kinnan deck. They gave me a model of your deck that I use, and I'm like, this is the most fun I've had in so long because I'm just like turn 3, just like hammered slamming, and they're like, what happened, man? I'm like, dude, I just went off. It's the greatest feeling. And cEDH is the closest I've come to playing single player Magic. And what by that I mean, like when you play Duels of Planeswalkers or Chandelier or something, you can beat the crap out of the opponent and not worry about how are they going to feel leaving the table or anything like that. At cEDH, I've noticed that the feeling is, look, man, your deck popped off and you like completely obliterated us. Rad, let's shuffle up and let's do it again. Yeah. And you still get that euphoria, but you don't feel bad that you just like kicked a little kid in the nuts, right?
Yeah, right. Because it's like it's one thing entirely when like I genuinely feel like there's way more like level discrepancies when I play a casual game, right? Because there'll be those moments where I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, like your deck did pop off, but like we were all playing precons, dog. Like, seriously. And that's like for me way more feel bad. Like if someone does that to me in cEDH, I'm like, oh, that's my fault for not having an answer against it. That's all me. Like, what do you mean?
I think that's one of the things I admire the most about cEDH is that there's this understanding and this notion of like, look, we're all playing to a certain level. We're all playing to the best of our ability. Yeah. Our goal is to win, but also just to chill and win. And like, there's this nebulous gap between cEDH and Precon that is 7.
Right.
And it's like, and trying to sort that one out has been like 4 years of my life.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that was like one of the things, because once again, I played a lot of casual and I still actually do a decent amount to this day. And there is like that nebulous conversation of like, where is this power level wise? There's always one person who's just a little off, and it's okay. We get it. You're sort of, it's like asking a bunch of artists to quantify how much their painting is worth. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah, and it's just sometimes you like. I remember early in pandemic, I was playing with the PlayEDH guys, and I brought a deck to them, and I'm like, this is my most powerful deck I've got. And they're like, yeah, if you take the Gaia's Cradle out, this will be like a low to mid tier deck for us. And I'm like, this is the most powerful deck I have. It crushes people. And they're like, yeah. And if you play it against our most powerful decks, you will die. And I'm like, that's when I learned about calibration. But yeah, like, I think there's this, what the hell was I saying? I don't know, but it's just like, there's such a weird, like, it's okay to bring a deck to the table and say like, yo, you know what? I don't know where this is at. I just built it. I'm testing it out. Let's figure it out. And then be like, at the end of the game, like, okay, you know what? I get it. I'm going to play a different deck now because this is way too powerful or way too weak for what we're doing. But I hate when people go to a store and know that their deck is going to be like a Dream Crusher and they're like deliberately misconstruing what their deck is. Because that's that's bad behavior.
I will say, since the cEDH has gained popularity, I've at least noticed less of that, to the point where I think there are definitely folks who have been able to be like, hey, dude, you seem to be doing a different thing. Why don't you go hang out with those people? Because they are 100%. Consenting to this.
That is one of the biggest things that changed my mind about cEDH was like, originally I'm like, oh no, look at all these pub stompers. They're all cEDHers. They're all blah, blah. And then I realized that first off, that's just bigotry and I was being a gatekeeping asshole. And I stopped that. But more importantly, what I realized is that knowing and labeling something is so important because I can say, look, there's a group of people who want to play the game you want to play.
Yeah.
And they have decks that are here to do the thing you want to do. Instead of, preying on these elementary schoolers, why don't you go play with the college, the college athletes or something, and then you can actually hammer each other, and it's great.
Right.
You have fun, we have fun, and there's no problem. And by giving people a label and a place to sit that's fair and also like welcoming, then boom, we've built a community, and it's amazing.
Yeah. It's really nice. I really appreciate the balanced nature of it. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think like once we started really acknowledging, okay, this exists, this type of play, it's totally fine, and you can just go hang out with CDHers, pub stomping has like drastically diminished. And it's so good. It's so amazing.
It's been nice.
So how did you get to CDH?
Yeah, so this is a weird one. And so this this will come around to, I believe, the first time you and I actually recorded a podcast together, which was a very long time ago at this point. But so I was playing in a store in Worcester, Massachusetts, probably about a half a decade ago at this point.
I grew up right next to Worcester.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, in Shrewsbury when I was a kid. But anyways.
And so I was playing there, and a friend of mine, it was like right when Najila just came out, and a friend of mine was like, hey, this deck's really cool. Like he was kind of pushing it to that like high power space. He had the combos, stuff like that. And I was playing Naban, the Dean of whatever it's called.
Iteration?
Iteration, exactly. The double ETB wizard guy. And it had some counter spells and some control wizards and a couple things like that. Nothing like super oppressive for a casual game, but enough that it would be like fun and gimmicky while also like still interactive. And he was like, hey dude, you're playing this like very clearly not cEDH deck, and you're like keeping up and interacting well and all that stuff. Like you should come play cEDH with us. And meanwhile, in a completely separate store, there was this group of people who were like very old head Magic, like the best people at every 60 card event. They crushed every FNM, all that stuff. And I wanted to play casual with them. And they would play this like high power, close to cEDH space. And I was like, this, like, they play really cool cards. Like I liked the idea of broken cards. Like,
of course.
It's why I never like jumped onto the Conquest train, because I was like, no, Mana Crypt is sick. Like,
right?
I like the busted stuff. So then the gentleman who I was playing, who had Najila, was like, hey dude, come play cEDH with us sometime. So I got a list together, got that going, and simultaneously Braden, who I did the cEDH cast with, happened to be at that store like evangelizing cEDH in that area. And the rest was kind of history at that point.
Man, Braden did so much for early cEDH. And I say early, I mean early when it gets popularized enough that people like me know what it is. But yeah, like, it's funny because like I remember when Najila came out and I was like, oh my god, I'm going to do this. I'm going to build Warrior Tribal with all of my cool Khans of Sharkir cards or whatever. And I played it and it turns out that card is broken in half. Even with this garbage like draft fodder, it's still just like unbelievable. Like I remember talking to Verhey later. I'm like, dude, Najila is a mistake. Like legitimately, like you cranked the power to 12 on this card.
It's so funny. I think Lua has gone on record saying she plays every single one of quote Gavin's mistakes, which is like Yuriko, Najila, like all of them.
I mean, like Gavin is the number 2 biggest designer of, or has the number 2 amount of entries on the Commander ban list are cards that Gavin designed. And I'm like Golos and Sylvan Primordial and all. And I'm like, bro. This we need to talk about this. What are you doing?
Wait, who's number 1 then?
Rosewater.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, all right, fair enough.
I mean, it's probably like Rosewater, Gavin, and like literal Richard Garfield, right? Like,
yeah, fair enough.
But it's funny because like people are always like, yo, you guys need to ban Soul Ring and you need to ban all this and that broken card and stuff. And I'm like, half the fun of Commander is being able to do dumb, busted things you can't do in other Magic at every tier of power, right? Like, Soul Ring is fun. Mana Crypt is fun. Mana Drain is fun, right? Like, it's like, come on, man. Like, chill out. It's fine. These cards need to have some home, and we can't always find a cube. So Commander is but like So when you you discovered cEDH, what was that? The early part of the lockdown or 2019ish? 20.
Yeah, so I think I got into it around the 2018 period. So I had like a nice year and a half before COVID happened, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Like cEDH, I feel like cEDH definitely took off during pandemic
Hmm.
though,
Yep.
because like people had Discord and had a lot of time to talk
Yeah.
and had a lot of spell table to be able to just
Oh yeah.
grind with each other.
Yeah. No, it was genuinely like awful for the world, good for cEDH. Sorry about it, everybody.
Right. Like, I mean, it's wild. 2020 was supposed to be Wizards' year of Commander, and it ended
Yeah.
up being the year of Commander in a way that nobody ever expected or wanted.
Right, right. Yeah, and that is a part of it too, right? Like we can't help to like thank WotC for like printing some busted magic cards, right? Because what happened was they naturally just inclined people to play Commander at a higher level, right? Like there's certain cards like Winota, Kinnan, Yuriko, Najila,
Or
right?
any of the
You can't
partners.
yeah, any partner. Oh my god, the partners are a whole other thing entirely too, right? But any of those cards, you can't help but to play them in a very strong way, right? Even if
Right.
you're trying to keep that casual mentality in mind, right? It's like synergy equals strength in these commanders because they are inherently so strong, right?
Yes.
Which got a lot of people. I mean, Winota is my original deck list. For those who don't know, I was the person who like originally made Winota a cEDH deck. I had a
I love
5,000
that
word
deck
primer on
so
it.
much.
I mean, it's the most viral piece of content I made. It has almost a third of a million views on it, right?
Jesus.
And that's how many people like got introduced to the format through Winota. Right now, of course, you can double view it and all that nonsense, right? But like
Yeah,
a
that's still a
third of a
large number,
million,
man.
300 and I think like 30 something thousand currently, and it's still going up.
The Winota deck, I remember when I was trying to play her when Ikoria came out, and
Yeah,
I built a Winota Brawl deck, and I
yeah.
was just playing Winota in 60 card Brawl, and I'm like, this card is okay. This card is broken in half. And there's some cards I've noticed, some commanders just lend themselves to, even if you were just building on
Yes.
rails, fully on rails, just like
Mhm.
doing the fairest possible magic you can, are still going to just lend you to direct you directly into Broken Town.
Yep. A
And
million percent. Yep.
yeah, and it's like, that's fair and fine.
Mhm.
Like, at some point, you just acknowledge, like, look, this card's just not going to be okay for the tiers that I like to play at.
You can always
And
tell
like,
nowadays, especially because it's like, all right, so if I were to go to EDH Rec and copy and paste the main list, is this closer to a cEDH deck or a casual deck? And that's usually how you can tell.
oh, dude, yeah. Like whenever I'm looking up a card or a legend or something in EDH Rec, I just go to the commanders, and if I start to see like 3 partner commanders at the top, I'm like, EDH Rec, I get it. It's like, oh, it's a Rog. It's like, huh, it's Rogue Rock. Okay, the only people playing Rogue Rock are,
Yeah.
it's like, what the, um,
Yeah.
and it's wild because cEDH players make like 600 lists on Moxfield because they're just brainstorming, and then EDH Rec just sucks them all in and looks at like, oh, there's 1,200 decks with this card in it. Like, no, there's one deck. There's just a person with ADHD on the other side just making 38 lists.
Listen, as someone who has exactly 663 decks on Moxfield, I'm personally offended.
Look, if the shoe fits, right?
Yeah, I like to blame some of it on the fact that I at least do some of it for coaching, but yeah, no, that's like maybe 50 decks.
Yeah, but it's like, okay, that's fine. And I think the audience is starting to understand the difference and
Mhm.
starting to see like, oh, if I just take this list as EDH recommends to me, I'm
Mhm.
going to turn my friends into powder. And it's like, that's not going to be. But also, there's some play styles and stuff that are so much fun
Mhm.
at the high level that are not okay at normal level. But if you're at a table with everybody's understanding, you can play like Heliod combo and just have a
Yeah.
blast. Like
Mhm.
stacks out the whole table and then just go infinite. I'm like, yeah, let's go. It's super cool.
Oh yeah. I mean, even like I think literally Storm in any capacity and any archetype, like all those Quark Sakashima players who would be
Yeah.
hated by their casual groups. Do you know how much good is being done by giving them an outlet in cEDH? Like, yeah, we accept that you're going to take 30 minutes for a turn.
Oh,
It's okay
God.
here.
No, it's not okay there either. You
No,
better
it's
just a little bit more patient, but
Yeah.
it's not okay. Flipping goddamn coins. Every time I look at those stupid whenever I look at the Baldur's Gate cards or the Commander Legends, when I look at the
Mhm.
Commander Legends cards that all had like single color partner, I'm like, I thought we had discussed this. I thought we knew that the 15 partners were broken and we're not going to do this again.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, but here's a Dargo. And I'm like, no, this is not good. This is bad.
I will say they were actually very good for cEDH, ironically
100%.
enough, because what they did was they took all of the things that were just like, all right, so here's a Timna and Crom, but this one's a little slower, and they took it and they were like, oh well, Dargo's just better with Timna here, and it's like, oh yeah, I can do a thing that's unique and different and does a whole different thing. It's like you're still playing broken cards because you have 2 of them in the command zone. It's okay, you can still be broken, but this time it's different.
One thing that got me is because I was talking to a lot of WotC designers at the time who were working on that, and I was talking to Glenn Jones, and he was like, yeah man, I designed Dockside Extortionist for high powered commander. And I was like, you broke the format because you're a spike and you wanted to make spiky cards. What are you doing?
It's just so funny because Dockside I've had a lot of discussions about this card in particular recently. It is like the one card that is actually keeping cEDH a balanced format. it's ironic because it sounds, this is the card, I will die on this hill, that it is keeping cEDH balanced, because if it goes away, it's just Timna partner deck with no one else able to catch up any sort of advantage. Dockside, it makes the creature decks exist, because in a world of Bowmasters, they're already suffering, right? But Dockside is the only like creature combos that are efficient. Like the whole color gruel, just the color combo, I mean, just stops being playable if Dockside goes away. 2 of the best decks in the format are like Dockside combo decks primarily. Like they just all like the good creature based strategies, they just get absolutely taken out back if you ban Dockside, and it's not great.
That's an angle I had not thought about, because people are just like, oh my god, Dockside's a plague, you must ban it, or you know, Thoracle's a plague, you got to ban it. And I'm like, these things are living, like Merfolk players get to have fun too, and also like Thoracle players are sitting at the top. I mean, like we've got this idea of like their tiers and tables of play, right? Like, and like Dockside sits at these top tiers. Thoracle sits at this top tier. It's at the tables that people want to play that sort of thing and can handle that sort of thing, and they don't really like. I remember the first time Corey Baumeister ever played a commander, he was using my treasures deck, and he cast a Dockside mana neutral for 3 mana to get 3 treasures out of it. And I was like, and the rest of us at the table, it was like me, Rebel, and like Commander Mechanic. We were sitting there going like, what are you doing? Why would you do that? And he's like, I just needed to fix my colors. And we're like, what are you doing? But it turns out, like, when you're playing at power tiers that I like to play at, Dockside doesn't really do a ton. You know, it's like, it's only as good as the free mana that's sitting on the other side of the table, right? Like, if everybody dumps all their rocks down, then Dockside can give you 38 treasures.
Yeah, but I could talk about the Dockside math of the format all for way too long, unfortunately.
Anyways, not the point. More importantly, though, is like there are cards that live at like there was a time where WotC was just really full of competitive designers who were like, people like to play Commander. What is the problem with Commander? Oh, it's too slow in the beginning. Okay, well, let's just add a bunch of really fast ramp stuff in the. And like, they understand better now, but you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, as soon as they just create more of that stuff, it becomes vaguely problematic. But when it's balanced, when it's nice stuff, we like our mana dorks. They're balanced versions of mana producers. We keep those coming, you know.
So you basically like went headfirst into cEDH, and like, do you remember what your first deck was?
Okay, so it's sort of this nuanced time where I've always been a brewer, and as you kind of like alluded to at the beginning of the show, you'll see me playing a lot of decks. I have more cEDH wins with different decks than any other person.
That's wild.
Because I sleeve up decks people think are not even playable, and I bring them to tournaments. And there's a lot of people who anytime I bring something spicy will go like, yeah, he can win with the ham sandwich, you know. And that's my goal has always been to increase the diversity in the format. But to get to the point of the question, one of my first things that I like really buckled down on was actually Fibblethip.
What the hell?
yeah. So I've always been bringing the deep spice into the cEDH world. Yeah.
I'm just imagining you're sitting down at a table and there's Goto Helm over here and there's Thrasios and Timna over there. And you're like, yeah, boys, I brought Fibblethip. And they're like, I didn't know Fibblethip had a card.
Yeah. Literally part of it was to troll the cEDH players at the shop. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm going to clown on him with Fibblethip. This is great. TLDR, there's a card. I don't remember. Is Proteus Staff? Is that the name of it?
Protean Staff?
It's the one that like tucks a creature and then flips until you hit another creature. I don't remember exactly.
It's like Proteus Staff or something like that.
Yeah. So you would play that.
Yeah,
right?
Proteus Staff. You put the target creature at the bottom of your library, owner's library, and then the creature's controller reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal another creature card, and then put it into play in the rest in the bottom on any order.
Yes, so that's the important part. It says you put the bottom in any order, and Fibblethip says when it comes out of your library, you draw 2, right? So you don't play any other creatures. And you create a 100-card Doomsday pile. And that was the point of the deck. And so you would win with mono blue Doomsday, basically.
That is the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, it was a great time.
That is the stupidest goddamn. You know what though? I respect it. I respect it a lot. That's like amazing. Because I remember when I was first introduced to the idea of cEDH as a formal thing, the card that stuck out to me was Cursed Totem, which is like the most annoying card on the world. It just says it's an artifact that's just an activated ability, you can't be activated, right? And it's like, I'm like, this is on creatures. Activated abilities on creatures can't be activated. You can't tap your mana dorks. And I was like, this card exists to insult me specifically and is like the most offensive card, and only cEDH players play it. And now later on, obviously, you're like, oh yeah, you're playing, there's cards that are much more like Swan Song, which is much more of a cEDH card than a normal EDH card or whatever. But like, I was so wrong in my just understanding of what the format was even about. I was like, these people just want to hate each other and like make their lives miserable. Why would you do that? But I get it now, and I definitely enjoy it more. And but tell me, okay, so now we've gone through this. Let's actually get to the heart of the matter, which is the fact that in the past 2 or 3 years now, Tournament Commander has really like ramped up to the point that as of recording, Star City is about to have an 8K on Modern Horizons 3 weekend, which is like insane. Star City is like the big deal. They're the biggest tier you can get. And they've decided that it's worth investing in making a full-grown cEDH tournament, which means that there's enough of you.
And I was gonna say, I think that's more a shout out to the player base and a recognition of the hunger that there is for cEDH on a tournament level, right? It was something like really scoffed at, laughed at for a really long time. I mean, I cannot even tell you the hundreds of comments and messages. I literally had someone comment on something recently where, like, because my profile on Twitter says cEDH coach. It's literally what I do for a job. And someone was like, yeah, okay, good job trying to pass that one off. And I was like, this is how I make my income. And they were like, sure, buddy. And I was like, they're like, this is in the year 2024. People are still doing this. You know what I mean? It is considered like, it's like the black sheep of the competitive family, because what people see is they see, that casual multiplayer nature, and they don't understand that it basically converts to a game of Survivor with magic cards, right? Like,
it feels like diplomacy is what it feels like. Yeah. You have to make alliances with people. You have to backstab each other. You have to be ready at any point in time to be like, okay, look, this is a marriage of convenience. You and I are going to work on knocking this guy out. And 10 seconds later, when I punch you, you're going to understand, and it's going to be fine.
Yeah, and a marriage of convenience is actually the most apt description I've heard in quite some time. It is very much exactly how I was like. It's 4 consecutive games of 3 versus 1 that you have to balance at the same time,
right? Like it is definitely like the alliance. I mean, and I get why old head competitive players don't like that, because like having to negotiate the diplomacy and the conversation and like the politics of it is not the game a lot of people signed up for, right? Like a lot of people are like, look, I want to play Magic. I want to beat you, and I don't want to talk to you, right? Like I want to be on the table. We all understand each other, and we're just going to do this. Like, I worry the day that cEDH goes like international tier tournaments, and like, Japanese players and Russian players and stuff are sitting down at the table, and they're like, how do I politic with you when we don't speak the same language?
Yeah. So funny enough, that's already happened, right? So early COVID days, we would play tournaments on Cockatrice, and I would be in a pod with someone from Chile and someone from Denmark, and English was the main language that everyone would speak, but obviously there'd be people who weren't speaking it to the same eloquence and the same level,
Right.
right? And it was genuinely kind of beautiful to watch because you would see people who would they're like, hey man, like clearly there's a language thing here, like what can I do to like understand you better, right? And like it genuinely is really cool, and it's genuinely my favorite part of cEDH, because I tell this to my clients all the time, where they sit down and I go, luckily for you, compared to any other Magic format, you have a competitive advantage by being yourself, and that's cool. Like that is the coolest thing I can say about the thing that I've chosen to do as a job, is that you can sit down and your personality can make you a better player, and that
Right.
rocks.
That is my personal skill in cEDH and Commander, is like I can definitely con people into working with me, or make them think I am not a threat, or make them think that I am the threat when I should, like when I want to distract them from something else. Like,
Right.
If you have like Commander thrives off charisma, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
It is a charisma driven format, and that's half the fun of it. Especially, that's half the fun. That's like the whole. I mean, now you have the fun. That's like 80% of the fun. Is to be able to sit and talk and hang out with people,
right?
But what, like, okay, there's two separate questions here I want to ask you, because you just forked me, which is interesting. And one of them is, first off, your job, you do coaching, like, so
Yes.
I want to talk about like what does that mean for coaching, and like what do you actually coach? And the second thing is, how does playing in a tournament differ from playing standard like cEDH or Commander?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you can take that in whatever order you want.
Sure. So like, yeah, we'll just do it sequentially. So yeah, I'm a cEDH coach as my full-time thing. I big shout out to Ken Bauman, who convinced me that this was something I should just like look into. It was, I think, after 2022, I had more top cuts than any player in the world at that point, and the format was still growing and all that stuff, right? So I definitely had the luxury of like being able to be in the space and like push for like with the content, getting enough energy to like get out to these spaces, basically. But yeah, I offered him a coaching session. He said, hey, like, I think given the fact that you literally had the best record in the world this year, like you deserve to be able to like teach people. And I was like, yeah, that's awesome. And I was already working in childcare at the time, right? So like teaching was not outside of my parameter of knowledge, right? And it's always been something I've been rather passionate about too, right? So I said,
what did you do in childcare?
I was a director for an after-school program. Yeah,
that is so cool.
Yeah, I know, very much not the classic Magic demographic.
Well, like, I mean, I talked to Bosch, and he was like, yeah, before this, I was like, a psychologist at a school for like very troubled young people. And I was like, so you were a superhero is what you're telling me. It's like, what? But yeah, so that's rad. So obviously being able to move from one type of teaching to another is pretty easy transition to make.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously like having the channel on top of it, like it made everything sort of like fold onto itself very easily, right? Like events want me out there so that I can advertise them, and then at the same time, I'm out there doing the thing, like I might as well be playing these events. And luckily I found that after putting in my 10,000 hours, I started to be pretty okay at the game too. Right? So I just started doing coaching, and now I do basically, it's my Monday to Wednesday job, and then Saturday and Sunday we're out at tournaments. So most people get weekends. I don't really, but
the grind is never over for a Magic player, man.
It's always so funny too, because everyone's like, "Oh, why aren't you around at normal hours?" And I'm like, "Well, when everyone gets off work, that's when they hire someone who coaches cEDH. Like that's during work.
It's like, you want to talk to me at 2 p.m.
Yeah, literally. So I teach that, and so I do like one-on-one sessions with people where I would get on a call kind of like this, right? But we go over decks and deck choices and like preparation for a metagame, because cEDH is so popular. There's a metagame, right? And that's and all that craziness. We do brews, we do all that stuff. I also do gameplay coaching, where I'll get like 4 people in a room together. They'll play, and then I'll be like, all right, here's a tournament round timer, right? 80 minutes start. they'll play a full game. I'll be the on-site judge if they need it. But apart from that, my trap is shut. And then I come in afterwards and I'm like, all right, guys, here's my feedback. And I'll sit there for 15, 20 minutes and then just like crunch it all out. And all of it's amazing. Like I get so proud of my clients when they do well. Like I have so many that have just been like, I want a tournament this weekend, all caps in my DMs. And I'm like, let's go. Like it's such a rewarding experience to see people grow.
Yeah, it is.
People who care.
Absolutely is.
Yeah.
So that leads me directly into my next question then, which is like, what is a tournament like? Like, how do you transition from the kitchen table to the tournament table?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a little bit different, obviously, because there's definitely things on the line, right? And that's the sort of understood principle at the end of the day. What's nice about it is I have felt an insane shift when I've been playing like one-on-one Magic casually compared to going to an event, right? There's been a lot of it's got that poker idea where it's like stone cold faces, no one reveals anything, predicting information based on plays. Like I've seen people sit and play games in total dead silence, right? Except for to narrate their exact plays and then pass priority, right? Whereas cEDH keeps that a little bit more, right? While it does change, right? There are definitely distinctions where there'll be things like calling a judge. I will pre-apologize to playing the pod, right? Because they'll be like, hey guys, sorry, this is gonna be an inconvenience. I am gonna call a judge right now just to get clarification, right? And that's not like me like artificially buttering people up, but just really recognizing that like we're playing a social format, being like, hey, I'm just gonna try to do this the right way, which has been really nice as the format has gotten more legitimized. That part of the format has been really nice. I've been like, hey guys, I'm gonna call a judge, and you get a lot of response to people being like, oh yeah, of course, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? And that's the thing. And so like one of the other huge differences is like draws are actually kind of broken in cEDH, unfortunately. Because
what do you mean?
Only like you're supposed to win 25% of your games, mathematically speaking, right? So when you draw as a pod, it's technically more points than your expected average, right? Because if you get 5 points for a win, 1 point for a draw. But that means that in 5-round tournaments,
you mean
right?
draw as in like nobody wins the pod?
Like nobody wins the pod.
And not like I draw a card off the top.
No, not like doodling. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
drawing the game.
For meanings of draw, and both are powerful.
Yeah. So like in early cEDH days, you'd hear like, oh, I would never spite pact, as in like use a pact of negation that I couldn't pay for, right? But in like tournament cEDH, it's one of those things where it's like, well, if I counter this person's very obvious win, even though I can't win, it's likely that I am pushing the game long enough that I can end it in a draw, right? So like that's a bit of a difference with like subtle nuances like that. Definitely the politics can be a little bit less about learning, obviously, when that happens, right? When someone is learning cEDH, when they're playing with their friends, when they're doing all of that stuff, right? There can be some like heavy politics, but at the end of the day, like people never get so much so that like there's then an issue with it, right? Whereas like now there are rules in the addendum to the MSTR RPG where there are like, hey, if people are going too hard into the paint, right? Like there's just several $1,000s in line. It makes sense that sometimes people push too hard, right? And so you will see that in tournaments at times, right? Luckily, once again, lovely set of judges who are working on an addendum to the MSTR because a bit of an unfortunate call out here, Wizards is failing to do so, which is really disappointing because they have literally what the year of Commander was 3 years ago, and they didn't bother adding rules for making the game work, which is a little bit tough, right?
Sure, I will concede the point, but it's like Commander is kind of not meant to work. You know what I'm saying? It's meant to be like
aren't we past
loosey
that point?
goosey. Huh? Yeah, I mean that's
that
fair.
Point a little bit. Yeah,
I guess. I mean, like I'm not going to fight you on this one. Because it's bad to fight with your guests when you're hosting when you're your show. But it's more like okay, yeah, like I respect the position. Like I know where you're coming from at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing. It's like one of the things I've noticed about like tournament play is a lot of it is not just playing the game, but also playing the system and playing the like. I mean, not the rules, but like maximizing. Like, your goal is to win, and so you use whatever means you can to win. And sometimes that means playing the players. Sometimes that means playing the game. Sometimes that means playing the clock. Right? Like so, it's there's a definite mind shift like a mind shift that you have to have going on to be able to handle mindset. That's what I was like, mindset shift that you have to deal with in order to adapt to like tournament play, because like some people don't necessarily realize that, and then they get salty about like, oh man, you totally just like stalled out and won, or like whatever, and like obviously don't slow play. But,
I was gonna say that could be a
but
problem,
in the sense of like, hey, how come you targeted me instead of targeting the guy who was going to clearly win? I'm like, well, because it is better for me if we draw than if I win, or rather not, because like I'm not going to be able to win this pod, but it's better for me that you don't win this pod.
Yeah,
like,
and that's the thing is like it's like a shifting target. If I was to like simplify it so much, right? Because in general, in a vacuum, cEDH is a game where the intent is to win, right? It is well, I shouldn't even say a game; it's a sub format. The intent is to win, right? But when you go to a tournament, the intent changes from to win game to win tournament, right? And that shift, that paradigm can shift drastically. I mean, once again, that draw scenario can come out. It's like to win tournament does not mean I need to win this game. In fact, it means I'd rather draw this game so I have better breakers going into end of tournament and not take that, 25% chance that I win, even though those numbers are obviously a little bit, with some of the best players in the world, you can see that they do not only win 25% of their games, for sure.
I mean, that's what makes them like god tier players, right? Like, it's, I mean, that's the whole point of being good players, that you're statistically skewing the game to be in your favor. But like, that is a big deal. It's like your goal is to get the time twister or the money or the whatever it is at the end, and that means you have to keep not just this pod in mind, but what is your record? Who are the records of the people you're playing against? Like, you have to do all the things that pro Magic players tend to have to do just automatically, and like you get things like what's a tiebreaker, like, but that's like, I mean, that's fair and reasonable because you're playing a tournament. You signed up for a tournament. You know what you're doing. But sometimes I notice that like one of the things about Commander at all tiers of Commander is that we're loosey-goosey with our play. We'll be like, oh, let me take that back, or, oh, hang on a second, I missed that he had reach. I'm not going to attack like that. You can't do that in a tournament. No. You commit to your play, and it's in the hand of the gods now. It's like, deal with it, buddy.
That's a big one. But like, there's also been crazy stuff where it's like because of the multiplayer format now, one of the addendums is the fact that you can like be like, all right, I'm going to blow that up, and someone could be like, whoa. Before you do that, let's think about it for a second. And that is a legal action now, which it was not for a really long time, which is great because
to be able to say like, hang on, let me use my priority to talk you out of this.
Yes, actually, it is now a legally supported move. Now, there is very clear defenses for you as the player to be like, I have put the spell on the stack. I would like to pass priority. Please stop talking about it. And they can be like, all right, thank you. Judge supported says we have to move on, right? But you also have the ability to be like, hey, can I just reframe some information so that like this might make a little more sense? And it does that,
Yeah. I mean, because like, I remember I went to Silicon Dynasty, the first one, which was like the big cEDH tournament here in San Jose or whatever.
Yep.
And I remember watching Matt Sperling sit at a pod with a bunch of people and being like, okay, well, hang on a second. That person just tutored the win to the top of their deck. We all saw it. Before you use your force of the green one to destroy artifacts or whatever, let's piece this out and discuss it and see where this goes.
Yep.
And it's like, this is just table talk. This is not like no game actions are taking place. We're just having a conversation. Let's stop for a second. And it was really interesting to watch him, who is like literal Hall of Fame tier pro player, teaching people what things like priority passing means and like how to do this, but also figuring out a legal way to have a conversation about what's going on at the table without revealing information, without like doing something that's obviously unethical or whatever, but just like, okay, let's sit there and this is a tournament. We all want to win. But if you do this, all of us will lose.
Yes.
So
and it's like I said, it's managing all those mini games of 3 versus 1. It's like, hey, temporary ally, I don't want to lose. Do you want to lose? Why would we do this? Right. And it's like, that is the entire political spectrum.
Maybe you missed what just happened here. So let's stop for a second and have a discussion about what is about to happen. Like, if this person untaps, bad things will happen. So let's stop that from happening before we get I don't know.
It's so funny too because like you can really the way it's described kind of makes it sound like a bunch of used car salesmen, which is like so the opposite of what it really is. Because it's like no. It's like if you buy that car specifically, it's gonna break down, and that guy's gonna take your money away. It's like having 3 car salesmen at the table at the same time. Like, dude, that guy is trying to sell you a beat up Ford Fusion from 2004. What are you doing, man? Like,
this is why it's both enjoyable and so frustrating because it's like look. Real talk is there's a lot of pros who really wish they could be playing 60 card Eternal formats or 60 card any kind of competitive Magic, and they don't have it, but their area's got a lot of Commander players and a lot of cEDH players, and they're like, well, great. If this is the only Magic I can play, this is the only Magic I can play.
Right.
So I guess I'll go do that. And they bring their vintage decks, retool them to cEDH decks, and then they get real grumpy that like their preferred method of play does not translate to 100 card one-on-one.
Yeah. I can't even tell you how many ex-modern grinders I've coached recently who have been like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And I've been like, well, are you sitting there stone-faced, not revealing any information? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, ching! Like, that's it.
It's like, have you considered the social aspect of Commander? They're like, but I don't want. I'm like, no, this is the table you're sitting at now, bud. This is the game.
Yes, it's like there are a plethora of formats that do not involve that specific part of Magic, and I'm sorry to say this is not one of them.
Yeah, like I really want. I mean, I would love nothing more than Wizards of the Coast to properly support single player Magic, so that everybody sits at the table they want to be sitting at and has fun playing the Magic they want to be playing at, instead of forcing everybody to play Commander, which not everybody wants to do.
Yeah.
And I say this as a dude who runs Commander, right? Like, come on, man. Like, I don't want people playing Commander who don't want to be playing Commander. I want you to have fun. Like, don't feel obligated to be like. That's stupid.
These tables, and I think that's what we're seeing with a lot of the lore Kana defectors nowadays.
Yeah,
they've jumped ship.
That game, it thematically does not work for me. And when I watch it, when I go to, I saw one Lorcana tournament, and half of it was like, well, like maybe like a fourth of it was like little children who are Disney fans. A fourth of it was like adults who are Disney fans. And then it was just a bunch of like disaffected grinders from other card games. And I'm like, this is not how you build a card game.
Yeah.
Man.
Listen, Frank Karsten winning the most recent Lorcana tournament was all we needed to know.
It's so funny. First off, Frank Karsten, one of my favorite players, one of my favorite people, just an absolute genius sweetheart.
Yeah.
But bro, like, you're just taking money from literal babies. And I'm glad. I mean, look, the game was made by former WotC designers. They know how to make a spiky game. Go for it, God, man. Enjoy yourself. But, like, you're not going to see me casting Ariel and singing songs. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, look, I do not want to disparage any styles of play, and I've gotten a lot better about that. Like, I just like watching you play, and I like playing the decks that you make because I think they're really, really fun. And I think you have this way of looking at the format, which comes at it still at a high enough, like a high tier power, but is not hitting it from the same direction that every other deck is. Because like, there's so many cEDH decks that are literally like, here's this deck, but 2 cards different, and I'm like, I don't want that. I'm like, you build, like, I'll be honest, you build really Timmy decks, and as a dirty casual, playing Kinnan and spewing out gigantic like monsters is kind of the Magic I want to be doing anyways.
Oh, for sure.
You just happen to have more forces in your deck than I would, and like mana crypts and
I mean, if you look at like some of the decks I'm most like famous for, it's like Winota, dropper of big creatures, Kinnan, dropper of big creatures, Atali is big creature in command zone, Tivit is big creature in command zone. I like big creatures that do over the top stuff. Like, it's
like, that's why we play Magic, to do big stupid things. And everybody's level 1 is looking at Kinnan and going, oh, Basalt Monolith is real dumb right now. And it's like, yes it is. And when Basalt Monolith is stupid, I'm a happy camper.
Oh yeah, I've been a big Monolith fan since the beginning. I was a Zerda stan for a long time.
Zerda, love that card. So how do you decide what you want to bring to a tournament?
Oof. Okay. Well, it's a raw combination of ADHD neurons firing for sure. I wasn't kidding about the 600 deck list earlier. It's a very
Neither was
real
I.
thing. Yeah, it's so funny too when people are like, "How do you always know how to evaluate these decks that no one's ever heard of?" And it's like, bro, because when the set came out, I tried it and moved on. Like, what do you mean?
I built 350 decks before the set
Yeah.
reveal was
No,
done.
like legit. It's I have so many of these decks that I build them in Moxfield. I go into the playtest feature. I go, all right, I'm gonna do 100 goldfishes. I don't actually count it. I just know that I do it 100 times because that's how quick my brain works on these things. And I'm like, okay, all right, this is awkward, this is awkward, this is awkward.
Well,
All
I
right,
mean, a
fish
lot
that,
of
change
times you
these
can
things.
build a deck, you can look at your opening hand and go like, this is not going to work.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, you can immediately tell, like, I mean, even in casual play, it's like once you've done it enough, you can open a hand and look at it and go like, oh, this is absolutely not going to do the thing out.
Absolutely.
Throw the
Yeah,
deck away.
cEDH is a very mulligan focused format because like if you assume most games are between 3 to 7 turns, right?
Right.
Think about how much of that is affected by the first 7 cards you keep in the game, right? Like that is a exponentially huge, right? So
Right.
and especially those people who are like, oh well, it doesn't do anything till turn 2, but turn 2 is good. It's like, do you know
Yeah,
how many
turn 2 is an
like
hour
what the
from now,
percentage
buddy.
right? Yeah, turn 2 is gonna be like halfway through the round. What do you mean? No. It's the turn ones aren't usually that crazy. But like legitimately it does come to a major like head, you know, and people hear this stuff and it's like, okay, there are decks in the format that can turn 2 people, absolutely, right? That's not the norm. It is not how the format actually plays out. It's actually very interactive, very interesting. There's a lot of different stuff that happens, but that's small soapbox jumping off it for a sec.
Well, I mean, I like to say that EDH plays on the table, cEDH plays on the stack.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I've used you quoting that many times.
Well, I mean, it's true though. Like nobody can say cEDH is not an interactive format.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. There's been like I think of the, let's assume that I've played, I don't know, 4,000 games of cEDH in my lifetime, which may be high, maybe low. I don't know. I'm not good at that math, but I would say probably about 50 of those games have been ships passing in the night style games. And guess what? I look at those pilots and I go, yeah, hey, this is why certain decks should be more responsible. Okay, have a good day. And then I walk away. Right? And that is genuinely how I think the format's just better when there's interaction, when there's things happening, and you know, people are playing a game with the other people.
That's fair, but I mean, I'll be honest. I'm also one of the largest advocates for ships passing in the night. Like, I want to see the cool machine you built with your deck pop off, and I want to have my thing pop off. But also,
that's how I play casual for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the understanding is we're playing casual and it's fine. Mm-hmm. But also, I've come to realize, like, guys, it's okay to put like single target removal in your deck. Play Swords of Plowshares. It's fine. It won't hurt you. It'll help you win. Just stop, please. Like, yeah, I don't know. But everyone's like, I've got 100. No, I've got like 60 cards to use. I'm not going to give any of those up. And I'm like, fair.
Yeah. But I guess going back to the initial like assessment of how we figure it out is like, I'll do those mulligans, right? Like there won't be decks that will work. Some of them won't, all of that kind of stuff. Some of them will feel clunky. And then some of them will just be like, oh, this is very interesting to play, right? Specifically lately, I've done a new adaptation. So originally it was just like decks that seem interesting that I know other people aren't trying, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, my end goal is always expand the format, right? And like you'd mentioned, like you enjoy a lot of the decks that I play because like that's what I'm pushing for. I'm pushing for those decks that try different things, that do different things. Like I've pulled in decks that were considered like, oh yeah, this was good back in 2015. It's like, cool, I'll sleeve it up, make a top cut with it today. And that's my goal, right? But I'm always pushing for those things. And lately I've had this fun new adaptation to decks that I play, which is, well, people I coach play these decks and I haven't tried these specific decks. And I had actually one of my patrons called me out on that. And they're like, I feel like Ian does really well with our decks to motivate us to do better. And I was like, yes, and I want to know the ins and out of your deck because that way when we're talking about it, I'm not just talking fully out of my bum. I can actually be like, oh yes, when I played this deck, I had this experience and this is what I will use.
So when I beat you with this deck in the last tournament, this is how I look. Oh my goodness gracious me. Because like, look, there were like, it's wild because between you and Bosch, I feel like you guys have won every major cEDH tournament there is, just like back and forth, and it's funny and amusing to watch because you're such pleasant people, which is belies the stereotype of the kind of sweaty grinders we expect to see, right? It's like it's great. But
yeah, I will say there are definitely, and this is just to shout out some others in the space. There are some very, very good players out there who don't, have as much of a public platform as players like myself, right? Who
yeah,
also do very, very well. And there's specifically like 4 or 5 of my contemporaries who I think are just like always up there with me, always people who I expect, people like Freedom Waffle, Jorman, Wounded Satellite, all folks like that who you can expect to see at these top tables. Just want to shout them out so they don't feel a little left out there.
for sure. No, and I'm not saying that they're not. I'm just saying like
Mhm.
my visibility into the sphere is pretty limited. So it's just like
Right.
it's like I do my best to keep up because it's important for me as a member of the CAG and as a member of like this body to
Mhm.
understand what you guys are doing and
Yeah.
to like really understand or respect it and be able to
Yeah.
say like, look, even if this isn't my kind of Magic, at least I get it. And at
Yeah.
least I get where your problems are and where your challenges are.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they're like doing construction right outside my house or literally in my backyard. So it's very loud and I apologize if I don't edit any of that noise out.
No, I think that's genuinely like an attitude I really like. I've always pushed towards appreciating, which is like, and I used to teach this to the kids all the time back in with my old job, which was like, it is totally okay to say I don't understand, but I respect and want to be supportive. And I was like, I used to say that for any issue that was way too complicated for a child to understand. I'd be like, listen, just be respectful. That's all we need.
Yeah, you know what? It's like, look, are you guys having fun? Then I'm good. I don't need to mess around. I don't need to tell you what to do. I just like if you're having any problems, if the house is on fire, give me a call. Otherwise, I'm going to let that world exist and y'all can just have a grand old time. Because like the problem is with Wizards, it's not with you. It's not with people who are like I think I've come to that understanding, which is like I shouldn't get like getting mad at players for playing the cards that exist is stupid. Like these cards exist. It is the job of Wizards of the Coast to stop making them. I will get mad at Gavin, but I won't get mad at like the dude is like, look, man, they made this card, so I built this cool deck that does a thing, and I'm like, you know what, fair play, buddy.
And honestly, all we can hope is that like as we were talked about earlier in the episode, like over time, the people who are like, oh, like this broken card's really, really cool. It's like, cool that we have a space for that. Come play in your safe space. Make everyone else feel safe doing whatever nonsense. Like let them play Howling Mine deck. Like enjoy, have fun. And
I'm literally building Council of 4 Howling Mine deck right now.
Let's go. I've been my casual deck of choice right now is the Ian Malcolm, the Is It one from Jurassic Park that triggers every time everyone draws their second card, and it's so bad. But it makes everyone play the game because they all have like super stocked hands.
Like suddenly look, dude, you can't complain. You've got 38 cards in your hand.
Exactly.
Be able to do something.
Like my win percentage is probably like 3%, and I love it.
Yeah, but you know what though? As long as you're having a good time, who cares?
Yeah.
Like I don't play. I could play this game to win. I don't, because that's just not what I want to do with my time. But I don't begrudge it. And I'm really glad that you were able to come on today. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while because I just enjoy what you do, and I think that you put out the kind of energy in the world that I really just appreciate a lot. Because like I'm not gonna lie, there've been a lot of me and the cEDH community have had ups and downs through the years. And it's fine. I think it's fine. I'm very happy to let people do what they want to do. I will say this, and this is one thing that just happened to me recently. This is not you at all. This is just it triggered a thought in my head. Someone was like, there goes Shivam with another bad take again. After like in reply to a post where I'm like, hey guys, if you play the games that everybody like at your table wants to play, you'll all have more fun. And they're like, I'm like, what the hell? How is that a bad take? Sit down at the table where people are playing the thing you want to do, and you will enjoy yourself more than if you're sitting at a table where 3 people are playing Candy Crush and you're playing Street Fighter, right? Like, come on, this is
right?
Come on.
Yeah. It's obviously very controversial to say. Make sure everyone's having a good time.
You know what? You wouldn't think it would be.
Yeah.
However,
right? No, I mean genuinely, it's like. And there have been historically, right, as you're sort of alluding to, definitely some people in cEDH who have not done the best to like be voices for the community, right?
That happens. And that's every community's got that.
It does, right? And there have been times where I haven't even been a positive voice. I've just been quiet, because the messages are just crazy out there, right? But I think genuinely, I think as long as people are trying, that's the important part, right? Trying to make a safer space, like. The content I produce is to teach people to cultivate more, to expand the horizons of people trying to play the format, to provide more decks to people who, maybe wouldn't even have touched cEDH before, right? And I do that with public persona as well, and like just make the format accessible, because it's people are out there who want to try it and who end up playing it and have an awesome time, and it's with regular Commander, it's with cEDH, it's all of it, right? So if I could leave one message for today, it's just like, do your best to try and make your community a like safe space, right? Make it the place where people want to be there, want to see play. Sometimes optimization doesn't mean that you have to treat others poorly because you think they're objectively wrong about something. Like it is okay. Like it is okay for people to be playing on a different spectrum as you, and that's fine. Tournament EDH is separate from cEDH. It is okay. People can play their pet decks, and guess what? They probably still, if they play the pet decks enough, can show up to a tournament and do pretty well. So just give them the space to breathe. It is all right. The format has so much space for everybody. It's like is huge. Magic is ridiculously sized. There's going to be space for everyone.
That's just sit at the table full of the people who are doing the thing you want to do, and you'll be happy, man. Relax. Worry about your deck. And like, you are responsible for the cards you put in your own deck. And so what people are going to respond. You know how people are going to look at your deck. So if you're sitting down at a casual table and you bring like a Stacks Crusher deck, you don't complain. Like, what you sat down for. Right. When people are going to be unhappy with you. But like, remember, for like 80% of EDH, that's not like Ian's EDH, is the tournament EDH. The only winning thing you get is to get another game, right? So like play like you want to get another game. It doesn't matter what speed you're playing at, but be somebody people want to play with. Yeah, like so at a tournament, you have to play with people because they paid and they're going to be in your pod whether you like it or not. At home, you have a choice. So be somebody someone else wants to play with, and your life will be better.
And here's some extra incentive. Be somebody wants to play with, because in a tournament setting, that might mean that you have a friend.
Right? Like it's a cEDH politics, man. Like these guys will be more inclined to want to work with you if they know that you're not a colossal chode. It's just like it's like don't think that spite plays don't exist in cEDH, man. Like people will definitely tank a tournament just to get it to that guy.
Oof. Oh yeah. I have examples, boy, do I.
Anyways, my friend, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate it. A lovely conversation. If folks wanted to find you or your coaching or whatever it is, where could they go?
Yeah, so you can find me over at youtube.com/comedianmtg, where I do top 16 breakdowns, I do tournament reports, I do deck techs, all the cEDH stuff from the entire spectrum. If you want to find out coaching, I have a couple of places that are super easy to grab me. comedianmtg@gmail.com. You can find me at comedian_mtg on Discord, or at comedianmtg on Twitter and Instagram. All those places are linked on any of my videos and all that stuff. So everything's usually pretty easy to grab and find. But yeah, come get coaching if you're interested in the format, or if you're wanting to level up that game, and come check out the channel if you're interested in cEDH at all. I know, personally, I started watching cEDH content way before I actually ended up playing, because I just wanted to find cool stuff for my casual decks, right? So come check it out. You might have a good time.
And as always, my friends, you can find me at Gear Pretty Gears. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are sold, or at YouTube every Tuesday. Thanks to my editor, Dan. And you can also hear me on Shivam Wheeler Love Magic, where me and Ben Wheeler sit and go through every single set in the history of Magic, sometimes multiple episodes at a time, just talking about every card that's cool through the lens of Commander and casual play. And it's just one of my favorite things to do. And also, I have a monthly Dragonlance podcast called The Chronicles of Dragonlance. You can come join me there. And at my Patreon, at patreon.com/ShivanB, etc., etc. But remember, my friends, it's not Magic without the gathering, and we'll see you next time.